there has to be a deep discussion nationally to understand what the issues are in terms of challenges for young men. Some things are easier to fix than others. Um, but I believe once men find their way to become constructive and successful individuals, the whole imbalance of single parent households over the years, I strongly believe that it would sort itself out.
Welcome to Manstory. Ills in society are due to youth not having positive role models and getting caught up with individuals who influence them on a negative path. Manstory seeks to highlight men in the Caribbean and beyond who are upstanding citizens. No, these men aren't perfect, but they excel in different aspects of society and can encourage the next generation by sharing their own journey with us. Jason is an entrepreneur with a proven track record in sales and customer service in the business to business sector of institutional supplies. Having spent the majority of his career in the manufacturing industry, he has a versatile background. His academic accomplishments include business development, innovation, and administration. Jason currently serves as CEO of Roach Marketing Limited, a director of Langston Roach Industries Limited, and is also the current president of San Juan Business Association. Jason Roach, welcome to Manstory. Thank you
No
for
problem.
being here.
Pleasure is mine. Nice having me.
All right. So, what? Well, explain who's Jason, because you are a successful. Well, I'll have you talk about that. But who is Jason Roach?
Well, Jason Roach, I consider myself to be a very simple and positive person. I look at these simple things in life. I'm into philosophy, understanding how the world works, how we think, systems that are there to create a society. These are the things that are very important to me. Um, I like music. I like physical activity, working out, simple stuff. Um, I'm an entrepreneur, well, successful. I came from a family of successful entrepreneurs. On my mother's side, my grandparents did very well for themselves in the food industry, selling Chinese food. And on my father's side, my father is a very distinguished and successful entrepreneur. He developed brands, household names like Lanher, Soft and Silky, and manufacturing these products and contributing to the natural fabric of Trinidad. So I'm just following in the steps of the people that set the road for me. I now lead a company called Roach Marketing, and we are distributors for janitorial tools and packaging and so forth. So I try to keep grounded and positive and do what I can to create some social impact. In my current capacity now, I'm now the president of the Business Association for San Juan Business Association, and we really mobilize resources within our community to get some impact in terms of carrying San Juan forward. That relates to youth coaching where business is concerned, also social impact in terms of getting our infrastructure improved or corrected, as well as programs that could help the not so fortunate within the community and carry them forward. So that's me in a nutshell. That's what my life is about now.
Well, that's a lot.
Yes,
So,
it is.
what drives you? What gives you the energy to get up in the morning and do so much?
Well, I'm motivated by family. Obviously, I have two kids, two girls, and one of my major focus is ensuring that I leave a legacy of success for my kids and also to pass on something to them so that they could continue this marathon race. It's like a relay, right? You pass the baton down to the younger generations, as my father did with me. So I just want to make sure that I keep this chain going in terms of passing down things that has been a staple in our family for so long, being well articulate and successful in business. So, in terms of inspiration, it's really, I would say it's family and legacy. That is what drives me.
That's a very powerful inspiration right there.
Yeah.
I think few things are as powerful as family when it comes on to inspiring persons.
Yes.
I'm sure you've had discussions with them about the challenges of business. What is one of the a major challenge that you have experienced, whether in business or otherwise, and how did you overcome that?
Well, to begin, the first major challenge in business is really finding idea or a idea and a business model that you're really passionate about. Um, One of the things that I observe with a lot of entrepreneurs is that it's very easy to get into business. It doesn't guarantee that you'll be successful, right?
Right.
And one of the things that is often misunderstood is that when it is you get into business, you really get an appreciation of how difficult it is, the hours, the sacrifices that you have to make. And unless you have that intrinsic passion in terms of the idea, if it is something you really care about passionately, those sacrifices that you have to make becomes a burden. So if it is you're passionate about it, it's not really a burden. You're really striving to someone that is there, something that is dear to your heart, rather than just looking for a quick opportunity. When it is you get into a jam or a tight spot, you're more likely to withdraw. At least that's what I observed. Over the years, I would have got into a lot of different ventures here and there in small terms. Um, a lot of them would have failed. So it's a process. The gurus in business always tell you that as an entrepreneur, sometimes you would go into 50 to 75 failed ventures before you actually find success. And the key is not getting down in your failures, but actually learning from them and coming back again with a better plan. So failure is a part of entrepreneurship in terms of building your experience, and it is very, very important. I tell people you have to really focus and zone in on what you are passionate about, because once you get into a successful business, that is what you're going to be doing for the rest of your life, right? Well, you may get into other things once you're successful and you grow, but primarily that first success is something that you're going to carry on for the rest of your life.
Nice, nice.
Yeah.
It's interesting that you mentioned the whole idea of challenges, because I believe a lot of persons looking on, they don't appreciate, you know, all of the hard work. So they want to have a successful business. They want to be able to create something, but they don't necessarily appreciate how much of a challenge it is, and how much of your life it takes, the sacrifices. So I'm happy that you mentioned that.
Well, I work, I would say, 23 hours a day, right? Even when I'm sleeping, I'm working. My mind is always active. Um, One of the things with business that makes it easier is finding a, 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 a good mentor, right? Someone that has walked the road before, that you could learn from. This softens the blows in terms of failures or possible risk of failure that you may face. And I have to say that I'm truly blessed to have two exceptional mentors in my father and my grandfather, in terms of watching them and seeing how it is they went about managing their business also in a context of family. In terms of challenges, one of the personal challenges that I had in terms of entrepreneurship early on is curbing my enthusiasm. Um,
Right.
and that may sound strange, because you get a idea that you think is
You want
very,
to run
very,
with it.
very good, right? And the automatic thinking is that I want to jump into this. And sometimes you might want to jump into the first idea that comes to your mind, but you didn't really test that idea to figure out all the research that is needed, cover all the bases, and fully ventilate and explore risks and opportunities concerning the idea. So when it is you get into it, you're very well prepared. So when I think about business ideas now, I use a model, a road test in my mind. I have different processes that I go through in terms of exploring that particular idea. So it's not just the idea itself, but the whole environment surrounding it.
Right.
So I had to curb my enthusiasm very early on, and develop some patience. It's always better to measure 10 times and cut once than cut 10 times and not measure at all.
That is so true.
Yeah.
That is so true. You mentioned the whole idea of not being too excited, curb your enthusiasm.
Yes.
I do know that in some instances we have students who are in high school, and every now and again they may have a project about a business plan, and they may say, "Yo, this is a waste of time."
Hmm.
But um, what are your views on that? Because there is a big jump or a big gap between an individual who is going to school and an individual who is a business person. School doesn't necessarily give all of the the training required. I
No,
guess
it doesn't.
so. What would you say to someone who who is annoyed about doing a business plan in high school, and don't necessarily see the importance of such an activity?
Well, patience is not a virtue of young people. you know, um,
For real.
that is the benefit of choosing a mentor very early on, because that mentor is someone that is going to temper you from the standpoint, not because something looks good, you want to jump into it. You may not have all the information, you may not have the experience, and a good mentor, w- they keep you on your p's and q's in terms of asking you the relevant questions. Did you think about this? Did you think about this approach? What about thinking about another path? Right. So they really temper you. And very early on, we have to develop the patience to understand how to take constructive criticism. But for far too often, that enthusiasm in terms of just jumping into it and doing it, yes, it's good and it's very exciting. It's a rush.
Yeah.
It gives you a thrill in terms of getting into something that you want to do, whether it be carpentry or whatever the venture is. Maybe it is a service, you want to service air conditions. But when it is you really get into it and you start to understand the challenges, you have to have the fortitude to go through whatever challenges that come your way. So going back to like business plans, I know in our tertiary education system here, once you have to do a business plan, most tertiary education institutions, they would give you a mentor that actually walks you through what is the process, the framework in which it is going to write this plan. And they also do that because the mentor would obviously have the experience and would crystallize your idea. Maybe you might come across information that you didn't think about. So that is a mechanism that is in place, not just for getting a good grade in your project, but it is really a principle that has to be followed throughout your business career. It's not just about an SB. In terms of business, you really have to network and develop a team of people that you can lean on to give you insights that you may not have, right? If you were just to look at information as a whole, you could read many, many books, but if it is you were to read all the books in the world, it will take you from now till maybe a next century. So by getting a network of people, like-minded people, they may have read books that you didn't read,
Yeah,
right? So it makes it easier when it is you have discussions in that form. So these are the things that you could look at in terms of overcoming challenges.
true, true. You mentioned more than once that it was your grandfather and father who were your mentors. So clearly you have a good relationship. You had a good relationship with them.
Yeah.
How important do you think that relationship was to the person that you are now?
Well, um, I think it gives you a sense of independence. Um, I didn't understand it when I was younger, right? When I started to look at my grandfather seriously, and seeing him get up at 4:30 in the morning to go in the market to get produce to cook, and he would do this routinely and make these sacrifices. And the couple occasions that I would get up with him to go to the market, it was really hard. I mean, it was hard to do it a couple days, far less for your whole life, right? Um, but the reality is, once it is you're successful at what it is you do, that hard work pays off for you. And I think that has programmed me to a sense that I want to be in control of my destiny. And entrepreneurship gives you that flexibility. I really don't think, based on how I was brought up, I can't work for anybody. I have to have that entrepreneurial freedom, that spirit of evolving, and it is easier to do it in a lifestyle of entrepreneurship rather than a more structured environment where you have to work for somebody, you have to follow their rules. And I am one that believe in creating your own rules and your own narrative, and being an entrepreneur gives you that freedom. So throughout the years, that is what has worked for me in terms of making me who I am.
Awesome,
Yeah.
awesome. There's a freedom that comes with entrepreneurship for sure. Wouldn't you say it's a bit of an oxymoron? You have freedom, but you have less time.
Well, yes, but you have to ask yourself, what is freedom?
All
What is
right.
freedom?
I
So,
want to
and
hear
that
this
is
one.
a very deep question. You have freedom to do whatever it is you want. Um, but in terms of how the world is structured, you have to have money to do many of the things that you would like to do.
True.
It's a facilitation mechanism. And when it is we talk about freedom in business, we're talking about the freedom to create your own narrative, You once it is you're successful, you wouldn't be controlled by having a boss that tells you what to do and how to do it. Um, you could decide whether it is you want to take a month vacation, 2 months vacation, maybe you take a year off. These are things that these are freedoms that you could have as an entrepreneur. Maybe you could hire somebody to run your own business, but when
Yeah.
it is you work for somebody, you can't hire an employee to do your job. The boss have to do that, right? So freedom, it is something that we have to progress to, right? And it doesn't come that quickly. Yes, we have many freedoms in life, freedom of choice. You know, you could decide to do whatever it is you want to do, but real freedom comes with success.
True. And also comes with responsibilities. Oh
And plenty.
gosh.
Plenty
Interesting.
responsibilities.
So your relationship with your father and your grandfather shaped you.
Yeah.
How did those relationships, well, since how did those relationships shape you, and how what do you say? Well, yeah, we'll stick with that one for now. How did those relationships shape you in terms of your interaction with your daughters?
Yeah. Um, well, let me start with my grandfather first. The greatest lesson that I learned with my grandfather is discipline, um, being very methodological, right? Having a system, and you know, really the true entrepreneurial spirit of focusing on the job that you have at hand and really following it through and being disciplined and committed to it. Um, in terms of that relationship with my kids, I really try to give them that encouragement to explore the things that they like at a very young age. So I have one daughter. She she's into you know animals and anime, and she's very tech savvy. At one point in time, she was interested in being a restaurateur, and I would always push to explore that idea, and now she's actually making her own cosmetic products in terms of lip
Nice.
balms. So she is finding her way, and you would make a lot of mistakes along the way, but she has daddy to pick her back up if she falls too hard, right? But
Nice.
I always push them to try, and that is something that I've gotten from my grandfather. In terms of my father, right? He has a wealth of experience and a wealth of knowledge, and he's very well read. Um, I really admire his capacity to absorb information. Um, and he's very instrumental in terms of my success as a business person today, right? And that's my mentor. We live together, so even when I get home, he'd ask me questions, very provoking in terms of getting you to tighten up your ideas. So we are always in dialogue, and he is very involved and active in terms of decisions that I make from a business perspective every day. So we never stop learning, right? And the benefit of choosing a mentor along the way is that you're going to continuously learn, because you're going to see things from different perspectives, and you're going to come across information that you didn't know. And this is what makes you stronger, right? And your network is very important as well, because as you grow and you become independent, right? You would have your friends, and these friends become your network. Maybe you would have friends in the field of business that you're doing, and all of these are resources fall into fall into your network, and it helps you in terms of the actual thought. I like to surround myself with like-minded people, right? People that appreciate the things that I think about and want to reach the places that I want to reach. I see everything else as a distraction. So I try to surround myself with like minded individuals. And this is something that, in terms of how it is we socialize, you know, um, the kids of my friends and extended family, they're very instrumental in terms of coming together with my kids. So it is kind of passing the same principles of life down,
Mhm.
right? It's kind of like the law of attraction. That is a philosophy that I've studied extensively in terms of, we really have to we become what we think, right? And if it is you surround yourself with positive people, more than likely you're going to become a positive individual.
Right.
If you surround yourself with toxic people, you would find yourself being consumed with being toxic, right? So that's how I see that relationship between me and my kids, and passing down certain learnings in terms of how it is they should develop. But I never dictate to them what field they should be in. Being a businessman, if I have a daughter that wants to become a lawyer, she has 110% of my support,
Mhm.
because I am I'm a true believer of whatever it is you do decide to do with your life, it has to be something that you are happy with and something that you chose to do. Because when you become successful at it, just remember you have to live with that for the rest of your life.
True, true,
Yeah.
very true. So I see that you're following in your father and your grandfather's footsteps. It's
Yes. It's very important, huh?
yeah.
Um, in terms of one of the one of the most important lessons that I've learned as a business leader and up and coming business leader is that in order to learn to lead, you have to learn to follow.
Mm,
And that it's easy to say it, but a lot of people really don't understand what it really means. So coming back to finding the correct mentor, right? It's not just about selecting a mentor, but you have to be prepared to listen, right? And developing that principle over the years, it has allowed me to stay grounded, right? Even in my capacity as president in the business association, I work very closely with the first president of the association, who is also the founder, and he is active on the board right now. And I use him as a sounding board because he has 40, 50 years experience over me. So every step that I'm making now, he has already made it, right? So it means that when I make my step, I make a very calculated step, because I've spoken to somebody that have walked through that road already. So that is the relationship in terms of mentorship that I really appreciate. Learning to listen and follow to people who have done it before. And in terms of a general principle, I believe this is how life works, right? If it is real to look at problems that we are having in society now with this whole COVID pandemic business, We have a lot of people that are independent in thought, and that's good and great, and we have information at our fingertips, right? But we have a situation now where um, people generally just they're generally discerning, and to not want to follow the advice and the lead of the professionals and the people with the experience in the field, right? And we have people challenging thoughts that provoke, and I think we are in a chaotic situation because of it. And all of these things are constructs within the society. I think this is something that means a lot to me in terms of social impact.
Right.
Coming back to the whole theme of what you guys stand for in terms of passing down the right information to young people that could cause them to develop into something great. Um, but that is where my position is on in terms of that idea.
So let us chat a little bit about society in general. You brought it up. There is a lot happening. There are a lot of young men who don't have positive mentors and who most likely don't have a father figure at home. How how much of an impact do you think the lack of a father figure is in these young men's lives, and the what we're seeing now in terms of even crime and gangs yeah, I'll leave it there for now.
That is a very sensitive topic. Um, I don't want to sound chauvinistic, but a woman cannot teach a man to be a man, and
True.
the reality that we live in now is compounded by the fact that we are living in a time where single parent families is something that is very common, right?
Yeah.
And not having that father figure in a child's life very early on, um, it deprives them of certain lessons that's supposed to carry them through. Um, Whether we call it discipline and authority, um, understanding that there's a leader in the home that is willing to hold you accountable to discipline in terms of things that you have to do as a young person, whether it be chores, whether it is being accountable for your schoolwork and producing good grades. Most times in dual homes where they're both parents, most of the times the father really takes the responsibility in terms of discipline and authority in the home,
Right.
right? And I think this is something where there are families that don't have that duality of the parents. You're really at a disadvantage, and obviously the women that end up in a situation of carrying that load alone, they do the best that they can do, but there are just certain things that a man could teach a man, or even young girls, you know, from a man's perspective, that a woman will not be able to get across as effectively. So that is where my position on that is, but it is a very challenging problem.
So what do you think? What's a solution?
Ah, wow. The solution, there's no easy solution. It is multifaceted. Um, we have to, well, firstly, there has to be a return to spirituality, church, all the institutions that make up society and control and govern society have to. put emphasis back in terms of creating an avenue for men to blossom into who they're supposed to blossom into.
Right.
Um, so, for example, over the years and decades, the past decades that has gone since we have achieved independence, in our educational system, a lot of emphasis has been taken off of trade programs,
Mm,
right?
true.
One thing about men is that men are supposed to be very good with their hands, and you teach a man to utilize his natural skills to build, to construct, to engineer. These programs are programs that are not focused on in school. In fact, I believe that schools now are designed to develop people um, down a path of being in a career, being in the system of work. Other may argue that they do the school system doesn't do it quite effectively, but real entrepreneurship from a business perspective has to do with skills, right? Skills of creation. How do we create? And because that isn't focused on in terms of the educational aspect of society,
Hmm.
I think we are not well offered. We could be better off, but there's no quick fix. I mean, we're talking about mentorship within the church, finding a big brother that may have more knowledge in the Bible or whichever religious text, and pass that information down. People relate better to their own sexes, in my opinion. And once there isn't a commitment to pass that information down in a structured way, whatever the institution is that have to pass it down, um, we wouldn't see much development. I mean, even in education, we are looking at the girls have been outperforming boys in the schools for a very long time,
Very
right?
true.
And my argument is that women by design make better academic performers than boys. Our minds are different, and I believe that the programs that are very instrumental when you're a young person, it's not there, and there have to be a commitment from a national standpoint to understand the problem and push it forward in terms of getting the right programs out there to get our young people involved with. I mean, I remember back in my days in primary school, cadets was a very big thing,
Hmm.
and cadets give you the discipline. It gave you a certain level of discipline, something to ascribe to, a standard to ascribe to, that really, really shaped you as a young man. Um, Nobody is advertising these things or advocating for it. I mean, it's there, but it's not there in an impactful way that would create the necessary change that we need. So there has to be a deep discussion nationally to understand what the issues are in terms of challenges for young men, and how do we create programs, and how do we look at our institutions in society to reaffirm what a successful young man supposed to be, and how do we give the support for him to become a productive citizen. um, some things are easier to fix than others. um, but I believe once men find their way to become constructive and successful individuals, the whole imbalance of single parent households over the years, I strongly believe that it would sort itself out, because man would have found his natural place in life, rather than being forced to stay in a system that is purely academic, in my opinion. That may not be the best environment for every young man. And so we have to look at widening that education early.
Right.
And education is one institution that provides that.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Jason Roach. That was, I think those are some solid suggestions for how we can move forward.
Yes. Pleasure is mine.
Thank you for being on Man Story. Thank you for sharing your knowledge. This of course as is is a way of encouraging youth, and I'm sure that many will be the better for hearing your story on Man Story.
Pleasure is mine, Salvin.